from lunch, and thank you for rejoining us for the afternoon sessions. Before we do our next panel presentation, we're going to be presenting 2 awards from the council, one honoring an individual in the treatment field and one honoring an individual in the prevention field. And for the first award, I am going to be joined now, and he's on screen, is Keith White, who's the Executive Director of the National Council on Problem Gambling. It's my honor to present with Keith the Jeffrey M. Beck Scholarship Award. And I will say a few words and be followed by Keith before we announce the award recipient. So Jeffrey Beck was the first clinical manager here at the center, and he was here for 2.5 years. And Jeff is, as we called him at the center, died unexpectedly in 2018 and is sorely missed, not just by our staff, but by many of you who worked with Jeff over the years. In his 18 years of experience in both treatment and in recovery, his commitment to helping those in need was unwavering. Not only did he give all his all to the center, but he also worked tirelessly at the national level with the National Council on Problem Gambling. And on that note, I am pleased to introduce Keith White to speak about Jeff's work at the national level.
Thank you, Mary. It's my honor and privilege to be here to help recognize the Jeff Beck Scholarship Award winner and to help honor the impact Jeff made on NCPG and our field. Jeff was a trailblazer in the problem gambling world. He grew up in New Jersey and while he struggled for years with addiction, he still practiced law for 18 years before returning to school to get his master's in addiction counseling and completing all the coursework and qualifying exams for a PhD in social work. He worked at the Council on Compulsive Gambling of New Jersey for many years before coming to the Maryland Center of Excellence. Jeff served on the board of directors of the National Council on Problem Gambling, my organization, from 2009 through 2015, including a term as our vice president. Jeff was chair of the Problem Gambling Awareness Campaign from 2012 to 2018. And those of you who know Jeff, it's no surprise, he served on many NCPG committees, including, but not limited to, Helpline, Education, Bylaws, Prevention, Recovery, Responsible Gambling, and Affiliates. And that's just one way to show you the depth and breadth of not only Jeff's interest, but his deep spirit of volunteerism. Jeff inspired me and so many others with his intellect, his dedication to recovery, and his compassion. He will be profoundly missed by everyone whose lives he touched. But his spirit lives on through the Jeffrey M. Beck Scholarship Award. I'm very pleased to hear Mary announce this year's winner.
Thank you, Keith. So now it is my pleasure to honor and to present the 2021 Jeffrey M. Beck Scholarship Award to Mr. Raleigh Birch. Raleigh is a Maryland clinician who has been successful in working with individuals and families faced with the challenges of gambling addiction, and who continues collaborating with and supporting the center in its work with treatment, prevention, and recovery since 2012. So please join me in congratulating Mr. Raleigh Birch. And Raleigh, if you're with us and would like to say a few words. We've been having just some technical difficulty with the video, but I think Raleigh has joined us by phone.
Hello?
Hi, Raleigh, we can hear you.
Yeah, I finally got through. I had some technical difficulties, but I just want to thank you, Mary. I have something brief that I just want to read. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Beck family, the Center Director, Mary Drexler, and Donna Gasper, and the Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling for bestowing this honor upon me. Dr. Beck was a mentor and friend. During his 3-year tenure at the center's, as the center's clinical director, he was a steadfast example for leadership and dedication to clinicians and providers throughout the state. And I was fortunate to be privy to his able tutelage. He was truly a knowledgeable and seasoned benefactor to all the people he encountered in his professional capacity. And his legacy of commitment and personal passion for learning, as well as his willingness to provide hope and assistance to those men and women who are struggling with gambling addiction, will definitely endure. And I consider this really an honor to have been chosen. I just want to thank you.
Thank you very much, Raleigh. And we are very pleased to have been able to offer this award to you. Okay, so thank you again. And we're going to move on to our next award. And now what I would like to do is introduce the Center's Prevention Manager, Heather Eshelman, for the presentation of the Center's Prevention Award.
Thank you, Mary. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. This is so exciting for me. You don't understand. This is the first time here in Maryland that we are going to honor a problem gambling prevention grantee for the work that they've done either in their school or community. And the purpose of the prevention grants are to integrate problem gambling prevention into the school or organization where they work. So first, I am the only full-time staff person in the state of Maryland that is doing problem gambling prevention. I have so much help from the center staff as well as schools and community groups. So I am just so grateful and humbled to work with these organizations that are listed here. AHEC West, the Asian American Center of Frederick, Black Mental Health Alliance, iLaunch, iLand, MAPA, the Maryland Association of Prevention Professionals and Advocates, the Maryland Department of Aging, Meade High School, the My Life Foundation, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Maryland, the National Alliance on Mental Illness, Prince George's County, the National Center for School Mental Health, and the Youth Empowerment Source. So I thank you all so much, grantees, for all the work that you've done during this challenging year. And it was a difficult decision to decide the awardee of the Problem Gambling Prevention Award for 2021. But the grantee that was the winner was able to complete problem gambling prevention programming despite challenges with COVID-19 that occurred in her family, as well as in her school community. And like all of us, adjusting from in-person to virtual programming and being in the school setting was very, very challenging for our communities. Under the leadership of Mrs. Christine Smith, the school social worker, and the Students Against Destructive Decision chapter advisor, the SAD chapter at Meade was able not even to reach students at Meade High School, but it went beyond that. And it was able to touch the leadership of the SAD chapters in many of the Anne Arundel County high schools and educate youth leaders on problem gambling awareness and prevention. Therefore, this year's award goes to the SAD chapter at Meade High School and Mrs. Christine Smith, who is a social worker in the school and goes beyond her normal job of helping students in crisis to work with students on prevention. She's just an incredible individual who I've known for many years and inspired by you, Christine. Congratulations to Meade High School on a job well done. And I would like to present the award now to Mrs. Christine Smith. And Mrs. Smith, if you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you so much, Heather. Yes, I know we go quite a ways back, and it's been a pleasure working with you on different events throughout the years. So Mead Senior High School, our SAD chapter, like Heather said, Students Against the Destructive Decisions, will accept this award with great pride. We appreciate you, Heather, and the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling for this recognition. And we are so excited for the participants today to watch our SAD Club PSA, and that was one of the reasons for this award. And you'll learn how it was developed actually later in the conference. So thank you so much, and thank you for this recognition.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. I'll see you in the next session. I'd like to turn it back over to Mary Drexler to introduce the next session. Mary?
Hey, I am back. And we are ready to look at the next panel presentation. As you can see, it's entitled The Treatment Deterrent Nevada Gambling Treatment Court, Treatment Diversion Court. The session's intended for us to be provided with knowledge of Nevada's Gambling Treatment Diversion Court, understand how Maryland is actually educating the judiciary system to increase the connection between violations to voluntary exclusion and treatment, and also to learn how the center staff helps connect problem gamblers to treatment from court mandated referrals. So if all the panel members, I'd like to introduce you all right up front. If you could all join us visually. So I see Judge Moss, if we could have Stephanie and Jasmine and Anthony. Thank you. So there will be time at the end of the session for questions. I just want to let you all know. Put your questions in the question box. I will do my best to monitor the questions at the very end. Please be sure to enter your questions again in that box. And there are a lot of participants that are on this. So with over 600 individuals, hopefully we can get to some of the questions. But remember, during the breaks, you can go to the discussion board, and you can also chat with some of our staff if you have, and some of the presenters if you have further questions. So let me now introduce the speakers. So first, the Honorable Judge Cheryl Moss. Judge Moss was the first judge to implement problem gambling assessments in domestic relations cases. In November 2018, Judge Moss became the first judge to preside over Nevada's first gambling treatment diversion court. In addition to her judicial duties, Judge Moss volunteered her time to serve as a member of the Subcommittee on Legal Issues created by the Governor's Advisory Committee on Problem Gambling. Judge Moss graduated from George Washington University, Washington, D.C., then attended the Columbus School of Law, Catholic University of America, Washington, D.C., where she graduated in the top 25% of her class. Judge Moss was admitted to the Nevada Bar in 1997, the District of Columbia Bar in 1995, and the Maryland Bar, yay Maryland, in 1994. Prior to taking the bench, she was in solo private practice. She is a member of the Nevada District Judges Association, the International Masters of Gaming Law, the Clark County Bar Association, and previously served on the Board of Trustees of the Clark County Law Library. Judge Moss is the daughter of the late Dr. Rena M. Nora, Chief of Psychiatry, Las Vegas, VAMC, and pioneer in the treatment of problem gamblers. Next, we have Stephanie Hugh. Stephanie is currently the Specialty Court Coordinator for Clark County's Gambling Treatment Diversion Court in Las Vegas. She has over 10 years of experience in mental health and addiction field, currently as a licensed alcohol and drug counselor with a master's degree in clinical psychology and human development, and is currently a doctoral candidate doing research around emotions and behaviors. She has been coordinating treatment courts for the past 3 to 4 years, including the county's juvenile drug treatment court, which is part of a national research study with the Department of Justice. Stephanie is an advocate in the community and believes that treatment courts are where justice and treatment meet. Next, Jasmine Countess. Jasmine oversees the responsible gambling efforts at the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency. Her work ensures that Maryland casinos, instant bingo halls, and the lottery offer entertaining and a positive player experience in support of Maryland's good causes. And our fourth panel member, Anthony Parente. He is a mental health professional and addiction specialist with over 38 years in the field. He's a licensed clinical counselor with a private practice in Lutherville, Maryland. Mr. Parente is an international certified gambling counselor too, in addition to being a board-approved clinical consultant recognized by the International Gambling Counselor Certification Board. Ms. Parente is on staff with us as a consultant, trainer, and clinical supervisor with the Maryland Center of Excellence on Problem Gambling in the Department of Psychiatry for the University of Maryland. So I want to thank everybody up front for being with us on this panel today. But let us begin. I am going to hand this off to the Honorable Judge Moss and Stephanie Hugh to begin the presentation.
Good afternoon in Maryland and still good morning here in Las Vegas, fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada, where we've got some cooler temperatures. We were running in the 104 degrees, which is still cool for us. I'd like to thank you, Mary, for putting on a wonderful conference. This is my first time presenting in Maryland, and Maryland is near and dear to my heart. Now, I tout myself as a New Jersey girl, but I spent most of my formative years attending college and law school in Washington, D.C., but I did live in Prince George's County. So all you PG County attendees there, I'm one of you. And I commuted into DC every day to attend law school. I just want to do a quick story about Joanna Franklin. It was because of my late mother, Dr. Raina Nora, who was the pioneer in treating problem gamblers back in the days when they legalized gambling in New Jersey. She introduced me to Joanna Franklin, and we hit it off right away because she said Joanna was from Maryland, and she said, oh, my daughter attended law school in DC and lived in the suburb right in a little town called Adelphi, right behind the University of Maryland Stadium, so right by College Park. And when Joanna and I started talking, we talked about the Chesapeake Bay and that she was going to bring me a little thing of Old Bay seasoning. And I told her that's Maryland is the place where I learned how to eat crabs. And so we share those very fond memories. I have only 10 minutes to do my presentation because this is really Stephanie's show here, because every time I've presented on Gambling Treatment Diversion Court, we've never given a treatment provider perspective. So Ms. Stephanie here is going to, for the very first time, present this to the Maryland, and we are very excited. And I know a lot of you have had lunch, but I trust you will not go into a food coma. You will be informed, enlightened, and let's begin. So I'm going to give you six takeaways. And if I forget one of the six, remind me. But the first takeaway is, how was GTDC created in Nevada? It all started out with my mother. She was the chairwoman of the subcommittee on legal issues, which you heard earlier from Mary. And they decided to add diversion program in the criminal justice system in 2008. The subcommittee was formed on legal issues. And of course, I can't say no to my mother. She recruited me. Another judge, Judge Albright from Reno, Nevada, and a lot of other experts. We put our heads together and submitted a draft bill. It passed in April and it went into law, I believe either in July or October of 2009. Sadly, my mother passed away before she could see the bill passed, but the committee did not fall apart. People like Carol O'Hare of the Nevada Council kept us together. We pressed on and we got the bill passed. And so 2009, fast forward 9 years, almost 10 years, nothing happened. And very rarely did anybody know about this statute. And so the court was created in 2018 by Chief Judge Linda Bell. So maybe Stephanie can show that slide, a photo of me and Judge Bell. And Chief Judge Bell was the one that said, Judge Moss, it's time. Do you want to create the gambling court? And I said, yes. She said, when do you want to go live? I said, 2 months. Give me 2 months. We had zero funding, but I had the knowledge, and that's what you need. You need somebody with energy, motivation, and you see the picture there. Those are my fellow judges at the top. That one judge is very tall. That's Judge Michael Villani. He's the criminal presiding judge. And we put it together and we went live in 2 months. And you wonder, did we have any participants? Yes, we had our very first 2 participants. So we opened up with 2 people that was already, their cases were, criminal cases were transferred to me already. So we were really ready and raring to go. And so that's the first takeaway. It was enacted by statute. It became law. The courts had power and authority now to create the gambling court. It started in my courtroom, and that's how it came about. It took 9 years, but with persistence and never giving up, I used to tell all the chief judges along the way, hey, if you open up a gambling court, make sure Judge Moss runs it, because I'm the only one that pretty much, knows about problem gambling. Takeaway number 2, what is a GTDC court? That's the acronym I penned for that. It was going to be Gambling Treatment Diversion Court. It's exactly what it says. It's treatment, it's diversion meaning in lieu of incarceration, in lieu of prison time. And because the policy behind the court is incarceration for the eligible people that can do the program is not going to serve any purpose. It's probably going to make them depressed. They're not going to get any gambling treatment. I don't know of any gambling treatment inside a prison. And they're not going to be able to have contact with the outside world, particularly their families, their children, and not really have a meaningful life. So we're there to provide them. GTDC, and this is a new term. Again, you're getting a lot of fresh content here in Maryland, and I think Mary will be excited about that. I've called it now, GTDC court is the aftermath to the afterglow. I am the person you see when you've had the aftermath, the problem gambler. You have already fallen down the rabbit hole. You were arrested. You landed yourself before a criminal court judge charged with either theft, embezzlement, fraud, and you landed yourself in court, and you probably never had a traffic ticket your whole life. Okay, so these people are not, they don't belong in prison. They need help. They need treatment. And this is the way to basically get them to into a treatment. So that is what GTDC court is. That's what we're here for. We are the sort of like the attached court, and we take over from the criminal court judge's case, get them to treatment, and then we'll send it back to the criminal court judge to set aside their conviction. You'll get a clean slate. You were charged with a felony. You will no longer be a felon if you complete the diversion program. Takeaway number 3, how do you get into gambling treatment diversion court? The criminal judge, and that's Judge Bell, when she did a lot of criminal cases, her father was Stu Bell. He became a judge, but he was also the elected district attorney. So she's got a great background. You hold an eligibility hearing. So maybe Stephanie, there might be a slide there. And how are you eligible? First of all, the only thing you have to remember at the top there, you committed a crime, and the crime was in furtherance or as a result of problem gambling. I like to use the word disordered gambling, so it's less stigmatizing, but it is really, problem gambling. It can't be a crime of violence, a crime against a child. That obviously makes sense. And we have to sometimes sort it out, because some of our participants, if they had prior convictions or prior felony convictions or misdemeanors, we have to sort that out. But it is the criminal judge's responsibility to make findings, take evidence, take testimony, and say, yes, you are eligible for gambling treatment diversion. How do you get in there in this eligibility hearing? Hopefully you have a very good defense attorney, to say, we elect it. We voluntarily want to elect it. We're entitled to it. We feel we're eligible. We want to get into Judge Moss's courtroom. So it's basically takeaway number 3, eligibility hearing. And if you're eligible, you'll make it into Judge Moss's courtroom. Takeaway number 4, what is the GTDC program? You have to apply for it, a specialty court application. Our model was based off specialty court practices, best practices and protocols. And so that's how we created the program. A specialty court application, you agree to go to treatment, we'll help you find a treatment provider, drug testing, location monitoring, a GPS app on your cell phone. And my participants never had a problem with that, leaving it on 24/7. Make sure they're not going down to the Las Vegas Strip or hanging out at a 7-Eleven at the video poker machines for hours on end. So we monitor them. Financial documents, tax returns, bank statements, pay stubs, W-2G winnings, restitution. We talk about that. And then you either graduate or hopefully you get to graduation and not termination from the program. And you see me in the courtroom every other Friday. That's when we held it, Friday morning. So every 2 weeks, it can taper off as you progress and are compliant. And we can also talk about sanctions. I've had one of my participants test positive for opiates, and I gave him a second chance, and he really turned it around. And we also do, we do the whole thing. Aftercare and peer mentorship is going to be created. I know Stephanie will talk about that. We make sure we take care of them, have them go to a life of healthy recovery and stay on board with that. And it has to be meaningful. People always say, Judge Moss, we're aware this is not a get out of jail card. You have to be in the program. I understand when they get in the program, they might be in denial, but we make transformations. So that's the purpose of my court. The fifth takeaway is, I am the aftermath court, but we help save lives. We help save taxpayer money. In Nevada, $24,000 a year to keep one person in prison. New Jersey, it's $61,000. In Maryland, I don't know, but I think it's much higher than Nevada. But that's, sure you can Google that, but you know how much taxpayer money you'll send. In my court, we treat people like people. We don't call them defendants. We call them participants. We save their families. We definitely get the families involved as part of appearances in court. We have them come in sometimes. They can come in anytime and sit there and support them. And that's how I interact with them. Stephanie will cue me in later and talk about the 9 participants I had. She's going to talk about the 10th one that's coming in, almost $1 million. So stay tuned. We'll keep you on the edge of your seats. Finally, the 6th takeaway. I know George Meldanitz from New Jersey, formerly with the New Jersey Council, is sitting in on this and listening to this presentation. He and I collaborated with the New Jersey Gambling Court Initiative. I'll have tech support there, post the website and my email. It's the same model as Nevada. We're working on it day to day. It's already introduced in the Senate and Assembly. And, ears to the ground. This bill is a neutral bill. We're really hoping it's going to get passed, and it's going to be very helpful to the citizens of New Jersey. And I'd like to open the conversation to anybody who knows any judges in Maryland. I'm from Maryland myself, and would like to get that conversation going. And it can be done 2 ways: legislative, or we just talk to the judges, and the judges themselves, if they have specialty courts, and I know Maryland has drug courts, they can start their own gambling court, and it can be done. I'm willing to fly back to my old stomping grounds, my turf territory for 10 years and help out, because I still know my way around Maryland. Oh, my timer just went on 10 minutes on the dot, Mary. So I'm gonna turn it over to Stephanie.
Oh, well, actually, Judge, I feel like you can just, carry the show without me. We do this so often, and every time I'm like, oh, that's new, that's interesting. You got something else to add. I know we were actually even talking about these stats that you had put in recently too, to talk about, jail time and how much it costs to have somebody incarcerated. But before I do that, I have to go back to the picture of your mother, Judge Moss, because we kind of skipped over that when we went to the picture with Judge Bell. So this is the beautiful Dr. Rena Nora that we talked about earlier, Judge Moss's mother. And so I have to come back to this slide for a second and have her up so that we can give her the respect that she deserves, because she is the pioneer in gambling treatment. I believe we were actually going to start off with a poll too, Judge Moss, and we didn't get to that. So I don't know if we can still put the poll up. We've been talking about gambling treatment diversion court here, but we want to know for everybody out there, have you heard of gambling treatment diversion court before today? I know you just heard it now, but before today, have you heard of gambling treatment diversion court?
Wow, look at those numbers. Well,
I
I'm
know.
so glad we're on today. Wonderful.
I'm actually really surprised. I feel like I'm in a bubble because
so
we're
too.
so immersed in it that I didn't realize so many people did not know what gambling treatment diversion court is. Well, I guess it's because we're the only one in the country right now also. So there are the poll results. So 81% of you say that you have not heard of gambling treatment diversion court. That's really interesting. Okay, so I'll make sure I'll slow down on some of that information. And I apologize if there's background noise. I didn't know that they were going to do gardening out here today. Oh, right by my window here. 1 second. Let me close that window real quick. I'm sorry.
And in the meantime, like I said, we're going to give you fresh new information from the treatment provider perspective, because we have a lot of treatment providers listening in today. So Stephanie, are you back taking care of the gardeners?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Like they were quiet time this morning and then all of a sudden they passed the window right as I'm talking, right? Isn't that how it normally happens, Judge?
This will be memorable.
Yeah, we do virtual conferences all the time and then something always comes up. So I'm glad that we were able to see how many people know what gambling treatment diversion court is, because I'll go through it a little bit more in detail and slower so that everybody understands. But I think before we even get to that, I'm going to back up a little bit and talk about what treatment courts are in general. I love this quote that I found. I actually did a presentation on treatment courts for my doctoral oral presentation to get into the program way back when. And this was the quote that I used: if the mental illness helps lead the individual into the criminal justice system, the mental health care system should be part of the solution. And I do believe that treatment courts are exactly that. Here in Clark County, we call treatment courts specialty courts. There are 13 and maybe more now at this point, 13 specialty courts in Clark County. Funny enough, Judge Moss's gambling treatment diversion court was actually lucky number 13 specialty court. And I think her courtroom was courtroom 13, correct? Yeah, okay. Wow, they're getting really loud out there. I apologize for the background noise. There was none of this before.
Tell them to stop.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell them to move real quick.
Fill in. Move the next slide. Okay, well, while she gets that, let me tell you what Stephanie is. She's a gambling treatment diversion court coordinator. You're wondering what is that? That is somebody with the background that all of you listening in have. You're either an MFT, LCSW, a PhD, psychologist, a PsyD. You have to have those kind of credentials because you have to have an understanding of how you're going to obtain treatment providers for the participants. And you are actually going to talk on a daily basis, like what she did with our 9 participants, and talk to them. And then she makes recommendations to me whenever we meet every other Friday. Before court, we would have a staffing session. So Stephanie, I'll let you fill in on your role and what you do on staffing sessions to submit your court reports to me.
Yes. So I apologize. I'm actually visiting my family in California right now while we're doing this. So I had no idea there were going to be gardeners. So as I was saying, what most people are familiar with are drug courts. I'm sure many of you who said that they don't know what gambling treatment diversion court is, you guys are maybe somewhat familiar with drug courts. So historically, gambling treatment diversion may have existed as a track in a drug court program. What that means is that if somebody comes in showing any type of gambling problem or problem gambling disorder, they'll be put in a treatment track specifically for gambling disorder. So they'll still be in a drug court, but on a gambling treatment track. However, that becomes inefficient because we are not focusing on problem gambling. Okay. So I know there's many treatment providers and clinicians out there. Most of you are probably familiar with the DSM-5 diagnostic criteria on gambling disorder. So this is the criteria. I'm not going to read the definition, but when we go through the eligibility hearing, and actually the eligibility hearing happens before the participants get to gambling treatment diversion court. Part of what I look for when we actually accept participants in the gambling treatment diversion program is whether or not they've been assessed by a qualified mental health professional, and if they have a diagnosis for gambling disorder. So we do rely on an assessment by a qualified mental health professional in order to determine whether or not they have a gambling disorder. Now, the statute does not say that they have to have a gambling disorder in order to be accepted into the program, but I believe all of our participants have been diagnosed with it. Now, we have the obviously technical, formal, and professional definition of problem gambling, but I love to also put up this slide here, the personal definition, and I'll let everybody read it. But I think the reason many people outside of our world don't understand why we need a gambling treatment diversion court yet is because they do not understand this personal definition of problem gambling. I was actually having a lunch meeting with some of our state funders for our gambling treatment diversion court. And, they asked me, if somebody is going to ask me why we should fund gambling court, why do we need it in addition to all the other treatment courts we already have? Why can't it remain a track of drug court? I tell them it is very, very different than drug court. I also run juvenile drug court. And when a youth comes in with substance use problems, I can send them to drug test and I can see exactly if they've relapsed, if they've used or not, what their levels are. There's so many things that I can use in order to help me with the programming. With problem gambling, it's very different. There is no drug test. There's no gambling test to see whether or not you're still currently gambling. So the way that we run our program is very different from the way that a drug court program is run. And I think that's what a lot of people do not understand and why we need a distinct program in order to run, in order to provide this treatment diversion in gambling treatment diversion court. So in our program, we look back at this V model very frequently, and I'm sure with treatment providers out there, some of you might be familiar with this. I see us as right here, okay? I realize that the difference between drug courts and gambling treatment diversion court is that many times drug court participants who are in a substance disorder, they have not made the decision to change. I realize most of our participants are right there at the beginning of already deciding to make a change. So we're a little bit more on the positive side, I guess, for participants in gambling treatment diversion court. They've already made that decision to change, but when they first come in, they're still skeptical as to what the program is about. And I believe Judge Moss and I, when we, have these new participants in the program, you can tell they're trying to manipulate and see, okay, how far can I get with this? What are the checklists that I need to check off in order to complete this program? But then at the end of it, I think they realize, you know what, this is more for me than for completion of the court. So I know Judge Moss talked about the list of things that they need to submit and participate in every week. So we do have court every other week, and that is for most of the participants. Some of them are on monthly check-in nows, while others are on a 3-month restitution only now. Our participants 1 and 2, which I'll go over in a second, they actually are on a 3-month restitution only schedule now, where they just come in to make sure that they're paying their restitution, and then that's it. With everybody else, they obviously have to have counseling in order to make sure that they're receiving their gambling treatment. they obviously, again, have to have complete abstinence from gambling. So how do I do that? I request every single financial document that they may have, and I have to review them every 2 weeks. So a lot of people say, oh, your court only has 10 participants versus like our mental health court or our adult drug court within our county has hundreds of participants on the calendar. I'm like, our 10 participants actually take a lot of time because I literally have to go through all of their bank statements, credit card statements, tax returns, and all of that. These are my drug tests. So, you know, it can become very cumbersome. Some people, because they are, you know, they've had gambling problems in the past, they have a lot of debt, a lot of credit card, a lot of loans that they may have taken out. So, you know, it's a lot of different documents. And every couple of months, I'll also ask for a financial disclosure form if their finances have changed, income has changed, or anything like that. So, you know, it's definitely a different type of treatment court than a drug court or a mental health court or an FDUI court, just because of so many of the things that we're asking for that may not have been asked for from a drug court participant, right? I'm not going to ask for financial statements from a drug court participant, but we truly rely on financial transparency and budgeting when it comes to this court. And really, I feel like it's very important for the court and myself included to build that relationship with the participants, because I truly rely on their honesty in providing me with these documents. As a new court, we're still trying to find resources and tools to help us better monitor their finances. But I know many of you might think, well, what if they have other bank accounts that you might not know about? True. Credit cards, or what if they're getting cash from family members and we can't track what cash they're using? There's so many different things. There's so many different holes that we're still trying to fill. And I think that's kind of that's our trial and error right now. Judge Moss and I have been talking to so many different organizations and so many different resources on, you know, different, you know, self-inclusion programs, and even these debit cards where, you know, you have to put everything on those debit cards and then it restricts you from certain places. There's so many things that we're still trying out, but right now, these are the things that we're requesting from participants. And then we're just reviewing at this point their financial statements. And I think location monitoring is another thing too, where we make sure that they're not going into, you know, areas that might put them at risk. However, living in Las Vegas, you know, you can find slot machines in the grocery store. So it's very difficult for us here in Las Vegas as well. Okay, Judge, I don't know if you had memorable participants, but this is the first 5 here that we took on, and Judge Moss and I, you know, worked with these participants. And so we did have our very first graduate in January of this year, but Judge Moss, were there any others that were memorable to you of this list?
Yeah, but you know, you were talking, Stephanie, and let me first say that when they come in to my courtroom, when they used to come in until I retired, I ran it for 2 years. One, get them stabilized, meaning get them in the treatment, get them to drug testing, monitoring. We stabilize that first. And then we'll talk about the finances, getting a job and learning how to budget. So that is kind of how we focus. We have to do stabilization first. Yeah, I remember these 5 participants very well. And the next slide, I guess, is the other 4. I think you've updated the slides. If you look at the whole list, bottom line, look at it. Disordered gambling disorder does not discriminate. We had a guy from the military veteran. He was from the Navy. I had a young guy in his 20s. You know, he was a poker player. I had another male in his 30s. He was an avid sports bettor. And we had two of them were actual casino employees. And this new one that you have has a very large restitution. I mean, we can go, you know, you can get our slides and read this, but let me just say the amount of money that a problem gambler will go through is you'll see these incredible amounts. You have to look at it from a perspective that the amount of money doesn't register in their brain. It is just the tool to either feed the need for action or to take away the pain from past trauma. And so you got to have a judge, and we got to train these judges. We got to have a judge that understands this. The stigma that goes on with gambling, it's not moral turpitude. It is an actual disease, and an addiction. And so you have to go in with this, framework. The one guy, he was actually from New Jersey. I heard he got terminated. It took me 6, 7, 8 months of seeing him in court. Maybe I was a little going easier on him, but I was like, you need to get a job because you decided you don't want to be a stay-at-home dad with your twin toddlers. You got to get a job. So you got to get, and we'll help you figure out how to do the daycare and all that. He gets a job 1 week later, and this guy was a 3-card Monte dealer. He got arrested, and Chief Judge Bell is running the court now. She saw him and didn't show him any mercy, and I'm not surprised, but he got terminated from the program, and this is post conviction. Like I said, I'm the aftermath court, so he has to go out and do his sentence, and that was part of the deal. Either go through the program, or you can go back and do the prison time, which we really tried to get him to change and make changes in him. Sometimes we are not successful, but I think our track record is very good. I have seen changes with that young boy. I said, look, adulting is hard. I need you to do a PowerPoint for me and present. And he had a stuttering problem, and he knocked it out of the park when he came in and did his homework project in my courtroom. And you want to see that video, Stephanie, maybe you can post the link. There's a 26-minute video what this young gentleman did. He has made such a transformation, and this is what you don't see, these success stories. And when that person that graduated, the casino employee, because she paid her restitution, did everything, he came on the same time as her, and he almost had a tear in his eye. But my last court session, I said, Alex, I need you to carry on carry the torch. You're the veteran now, and when the new guys come in or the new gals come in, you're going to tell them how it's done in Judge Moss's courtroom, and tell them what it means to be truly in recovery. And another lady, the very participant number 1, she spent 2.5 years in prison fighting her appeal. She was the landmark case that said diversion exists. Diversion is a true court. And because of her case, our court was created because there was a need for it. And she owes over $650,000. I don't know. It's a large amount. She won't be able to pay it off in her lifetime, but there's something called the U.S. Constitution, and the case called Bearden versus Georgia, U.S. Supreme Court says we cannot, force these types of hardships. If there are financial hardships, you can do things like community service, or you can continue to pay, and it's part of their recovery. They might be, off probation, or their case is already gone, but those who are truly in recovery, it is part of the recovery to write that check and send that check into the victim. And we're mindful of the victims. We have Marcy's Law here, just recently enacted a couple of years ago. Marcy's Law gives the victim the right to come in my courtroom anytime and speak. That's what we do. Give them the rights. We give them to speak, but I also let the participant give their speak and give their side of the story. And then I have to carry on with business. And if they're compliant, then I have to say, you are entitled. It goes back to the criminal judge, and the criminal judge will say, I pronounce your conviction set aside. But we want to make sure those who graduate have actually earned that graduation. So are we on 20 minutes already? I think 21 minutes. So we want to make sure we get to the other 2 presenters. Anything else on the other slides? If you want more, we'll get you the slides. No problem.
Judge Moss, this is Mary, and we're okay for time right now. So you have a few minutes to go. So don't worry.
I see a lot of questions regarding treatment that I'd like to address. So these are actually very good questions that you are typing into the Q&A box here. Some questions regarding the charges. Yes, the charges are very diverse across the board, but many of them, the crime has to be in furtherance of their problem gambling. So many of the charges are regarding embezzlement, theft. I think those are the most common ones. I tried to put them on here, what their crimes are, but you'll see it's very diverse how they come in. Now, just because we only had 10 participants doesn't mean that there aren't many more. The amount of referrals are probably 10 times this. We just cannot accept everyone. It's very different than like a drug court referral where they may just be referred in for an assessment and then that's it. And then, okay, they need drug treatment, so we'll put them in the diversion program. That's not how it works with gambling treatment, diversion court. With gambling treatment diversion court, that eligibility hearing that we discussed earlier happens before they're even referred to our court. That sentencing judge has to determine that they are eligible. Now, the only reason that that's done like that is because that's how our statute is written. Our NRS 458A is written in that manner. So I'm sure with every state statute, it might be different.
Maybe I can give more concrete examples. Like one of our participants, she embezzled from her employer. It was a local family-owned plumbing business over 2 decades, video poker. Another guy, he stole golf clubs, the sports bettor. He stole golf clubs and was attempting to sell them to feed his gambling addiction, and he got caught. So he don't have restitution, but it was theft, larceny. Another guy, he took monies and from ATM machines. I think he did that when he was servicing the ATM machines. And another one, the casino employee took from she grabbed a handful of chips. Another one worked in the casino cage and probably wrote slips to pay for his gambling addiction, just to give an example. And I had 2 3-card Monte dealers. One of them got terminated. The other one is doing well. He was the one that tested positive for opiates. Calvin, he's doing great. And another one stole from the employer. The other two, they stole from their employer and they have to pay back. Maybe, I think it was like both of them were over $30,000.
Right. So that's why you see such diverse amounts, and some don't have restitution because some of that was either paid back or it was in commodity or goods like the golf clubs. So there is no attached restitution. Our participants are also not on formal probation. So that is also the difference. This is not a stipulation or a condition of probation. This is a diversion, which means that once they complete our program, their charges should be dismissed. It doesn't mean that they don't have to completely pay back their restitution. And that's actually a new discussion that we've just had in Chief Judge Bell's court too, is that, we need to come up with a formula of some sort so that there is an amount that they can pay back to, what the court calls the victim. So that is in discussion as well. However, we've all agreed that a person's restitution amount should not determine how long they are in treatment, because ultimately this is a treatment program. That is our priority, is that they receive the treatment that they need. So they must complete their treatment, but the amount of restitution that they owe should not determine how long their treatment is. So once they graduate from here, it's graduating from a treatment program, and their charges are eligible to be dismissed completely. Now, in terms of the restitution, there may be a civil agreement outside of our gambling treatment diversion court on whether or not they continue to pay that restitution back to the victim. So those are a couple of things. I know there's another question here regarding treatment in general. Do we contract with outpatient facilities and private practices? Yes, we do. Currently, well, when we started the program 3 years ago, it was a self-funded court. It's still a self-funded court, which means that the court is not funded by any specific funding resource. So the treatment providers are on a grant on their own, or they bill insurance. So we do not pay for that treatment. So first we look at whether the participant has their own insurance. And if they don't, then the state of Nevada actually has an advisory committee on problem gambling, where we discuss with the state funders in order to provide state funding to gambling providers. In the state of Nevada, you're a certified problem gambling counselor through the Drug and Alcohol Board. I'm not sure if that's the same across the board. I know there are national certifications as well. So with our state, we do have treatment funding for certified problem gambling counselors specifically, and our court will refer to those providers just so that it's not another cost that the participant needs to make in order to get treatment. Now, that is changing in the next year. We are asking for additional funding through the state, and we were granted, I believe, $50,000 this year for allocation of funds to additional treatment and also to drug testing. I know there was a question about co-occurring as well. We do drug test all of our participants, and that's because we have that in our contract to make sure that they're not using substances, because a lot of addictions, you know, it's either co-occurring with mental health or we don't want them to replace one addiction with another. You know, we take away the gambling, but we don't want them to turn to substances, or even looking at patterns of behavior. I remember, you know, there was a participant that always had so many shopping transactions on her bank statements and then a bunch of returns right after that. And that was concerning to me because I felt like she was shopping in order to get that satisfaction, but then she returned it when she couldn't afford it. So, you know, things like that we look at as well. But we do drug test the participants, not so much that we think they have a substance problem, but because we want to see if they're able to comply with a treatment program fully. And this is where we kind of pick out some of those manipulative behaviors. You know, we had a participant recently, I think it was participant 8. He, you know, he knows he's on a 2 times a month random drug testing right now. So after that second time, he decided, oh, I have a couple of friends coming over, I'll just have wine because I've already done my 2 times a month, right? Well, unfortunately for him, the randomization came up that his drug testing color got called that week. And then obviously he tested positive for alcohol. And when we asked him about it, he, you know, admitted that he thought his drug test, he already did twice that month. So he thought he can drink. Now, I don't think he has a I don't think he has an alcohol problem. However, it's that manipulative behavior that we are concerned about. So we also use Scram, which is an ankle monitor for making sure that there's no alcohol in your system. It gives us alerts. And we also do the drug patch, which makes sure that they're not taking any other substances as well. So some of the funding also goes to that in order to take care of costs for that as well. Anyway, I think those are some of the questions that I see here.
I am furiously answering these like a dozen questions here, and I've got most of them. Yeah.
Consumer credit counseling, no, we don't do that right now. It
Yeah,
is
but
one
we
of
do get their credit reports. We ask them to submit that. They get their tax returns.
We ask for all of that, tax returns every year, credit reports, bank statements, any debt that they have. Some of them have IRS debts. Some of them do have credit, like credit companies that they've tried to consolidate their debts. I have one participant that gives me a table of every single credit card he has and which ones he's paying down. You know, so it is a whole discussion. Like I have to set at a time. I feel sometimes like I'm an accountant just going through their stuff and making sure. Yeah. And, you know, I think once they get to the point where they understand that this is more for them, all this work, all the tedious conversations of doing, you know, the accounting work and going to drug tests and coming to court every other week, I realized that all of them at one point will have an aha moment, because the ones that have been in the program for at least a year to 2 years, and I think there was a question about how long the program is. The statute itself says that gambling treatment diversion court happens at a minimum of 1 year to 3 years. However, our program is a minimum of 18 to 36 months. And most of them do stay in the program for at a minimum of that 18 months. The ones that have, like participant 1 and 2, who started with us at the very beginning, they were first 2 participants. They are on a restitution only plan now, where they only check into court every 3 months to make sure that they're paying their restitution, but I don't ask them for financial statements. They no longer have to go to treatment unless it's needed. We still encourage them to go to support group meetings, but otherwise, you know, we just check in on their restitution. Now, the treatment is really based on where their need is. We have providers that create treatment programs for them based on their need, but we also make sure by the time that they are close to graduating that they are connected with a GA meeting. We prefer, somebody locally, a group locally, but I know right now, especially in the past year with COVID, we've had so many virtual meetings, international meetings even, GA meetings that have been very helpful for our participants. But one of the things is to make sure they're connected with a group and then a sponsor too. So our goal is to make sure that once they're done with us, once they graduate with us, that they continue their treatment and recovery and support system beyond our court program, because that's where we want them to be. Okay. And I think that was kind of the gist. I think I had a few more slides, but it really was just about everything that we discussed. You guys put it all in the Q&A that I would have really gone through in the slide anyway. I think I had one last picture of just Las Vegas, not as you guys might think of it. It's great that this court is in Las Vegas. But the one thing that I want everybody to remember too is that we are still a regular city, maybe with just slot machines in the grocery store, like I said, but our participants, we try to encourage them to live a normal life while they're in this program, in any treatment program, actually. We're not here to try to prohibit them from living their normal life. We want them to get back to normal, but to get that treatment and support on the way so that they can do it independently. So I know Judge Moss had her 6th takeaway. That's my one takeaway, is that, anybody that comes into this program, we want to support them so that they can get back to that positive, healthy life again.
Well, Judge Moss, do you have anything to, I want to thank you both. It was very informational, and apparently, Stephanie, you got to all the questions that I might have asked at the end. So I'm going to encourage people to continue to ask questions in the question and answer box, because we'll have some time at the end as well. But I'm really pleased that everybody is asking questions. So I want to thank you for this first part of the presentation.
I'm actually going to put up my email for a couple of seconds there. My email and Judge Moss's as well, in case anybody wants to ask us directly. So I appreciate everybody's questions, and I apologize for the leaf blower earlier as well, Mary.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I'll try
Judge
to.
Moss, did you want to add anything?
I can't believe we lit up the Q&A.
Yeah, I can definitely believe
I love it. We've got a group who is awake and curious, and feel free to contact us. We will take the time out to answer all your questions. We want you to know, because we want you to spread the word in your state.
Yep. I'm going to ask Jasmine and Anthony to join us now, and Judge Moss and Stephanie, please stay on. But I'd like them both to kind of share their perspective on what we're doing actually here in Maryland with the judicial system at this time. And we all know that there's so much more work that we can do with the courts and the legal system here in Maryland. But I just wanted to start that conversation, and I'm going to have Jasmine talk first, and then she will be followed by Anthony.
All right, so I'm just going to briefly touch on the history of the voluntary exclusion program as it relates to the court system here, and then touch on some of our ongoing efforts. So the history, the Maryland Voluntary Exclusion Program began about 10 years ago in 2011. This program was established as one tool to help those who are struggling with problem or disordered gambling to ban themselves from play, such as from casino, lottery, and instant bingo hall play, and help them regain control. At sign up, people are given resources for help, such as for counseling, peer recovery support, how to exclude in surrounding states, and gambling support groups. Residents also have the option to be contacted with further information by the agency. In order to be removed from the list, persons on the list must first undergo either a problem gambling assessment, participate in an approved healthy decision-making program, or participate in some kind of gambling treatment or prevention program. However, there is a third manner in which persons may also have contact with screening and counseling, and that is through court mandate. Persons who violate their bans and enter a Maryland casino are subject to receiving a citation for trespass and must appear in court. Since 2010, the agency has partnered with the gaming industry, mental health, legislative, judicial staff, and so forth to further positive gambling initiatives in Maryland as part of the Maryland Alliance for Responsible Gambling. Over the years, this partnership has allowed the agency to find ways to distribute responsible gambling information to the judiciary, seek opportunities to educate judicial staff, and even give presentations before Maryland judges. As a result, we have seen some diversionary dispositions expand from community service, for example, to include referrals to screening and counseling. Because the program has been in place for so long, many court systems are familiar with the voluntary exclusion program. However, education is continuous and ongoing as staff come and go and things simply change. Outreaches are never complete. In addition to contacts such as correspondence, conversations, and court appearances, the agency routinely distributes handouts to state's attorneys who are handling voluntary exclusion program cases regarding the free problem gambling treatment that is available to Maryland residents. The agency also has a standing recommendation of screening and counseling for Maryland residents. Sometimes we will see persons on the list preemptively seek counseling in advance of their court date, should they choose, or seek removal from the program if eligible, since this may put them in contact with counseling. On the referral side, we've seen people be referred to us so that we can put them in touch with the Center of Excellence, and also people being referred directly to the Center of Excellence themselves so that they can be referred to counseling. While the court ultimately makes the final determination regarding the disposition of all cases, the agency works continuously to get the word out about the free gambling treatment and screening available to Maryland residents. In the future, the agency hopes to find more ways to forge closer relationships with court staff and perhaps even assist in developing a system that's similar to the gambling treatment diversion courts that they're doing in Nevada. For example, maybe starting with a special docket for those who are in court because of an issue related to gambling. Future goals also include helping to increase the number of persons who are mandated for screening and counseling, and perhaps even mandated courses on things such as financial literacy or mandated participation in recovery and support groups, such as for Smart Recovery or Gamblers Anonymous. The ultimate goal of the voluntary exclusion program is to assist others to help regain control over their gambling and assist them with getting the help that they may need. With that, that's it for me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jasmine. And we're going to have time for questions at the end for sure. And Anthony?
Okay, thank you. Well, first off, I want to applaud Judge Moss and Stephanie for their presentation and for educating us all about what's possible here when it comes to the treatment of gamblers and gambling disorder. I certainly believe that the criminal justice system can be a proactive agent of change, and their efforts to set this up and to actually execute it. It's clear that they work tirelessly at this, and I'm hoping that there are folks out there today who are listening to this in a way that could affect change in our system here in Maryland in order to make this happen, or at least work towards a diversion court program in Maryland. I know we're trying to educate judges, but we know it also starts with legislation. And, Judge Moss even touched on that when we had spoken prior to this event today. So I thank them for that, and glad to be a part of all of this. What we want to do for folks in Maryland is to provide hope for a better life, hope for recovery. Recovery is possible, treatment works. Diversion can be a very key component to setting people on the road to their recovery. I certainly see from the work that I do with gamblers that accountability matters that gamblers respond to this, that having a structure to their program can make a big difference. The restitution being a part of it is important in a gambler's recovery. So recovery is certainly possible for all that suffer from gambling disorder, but most of the time people in their lives don't have hope for gamblers. And, you know, it's a sad fact of the matter when it comes to all addictions, that people lose hope that anybody's word means anything or that change is even possible. But I'm so fortunate to have seen and been a part of many lives that recovery has changed things around for folks, even when the gambler themselves didn't believe it was possible to have a better life or can't even envision what recovery would be or the impact that it would have for them. Because all folks come in with much ambivalence, but treatment works, and anything we could do to help people to engage in treatment and a treatment process is going to benefit the gambler, of course, society as a whole, but it has a ripple effect that starts with the gambler and extends to their families, to their friends, to their neighbors and their communities. So the structure of any kind of treatment program to help those who suffer with gambling disorder is a big win for all involved and for, again, our society. But, you know, helping people to understand and to reduce the stigma of this illness that people suffer from, that this is not a choice, that no one chooses to have a gambling disorder. And with all the folks that I've ever worked with, it's always, it's not going to happen to me. I can control this. Those are the two main things that I hear from folks who start off possibly and usually as you know, social gamblers, recreational gamblers, and then the progression of the illness we know moves to misuse and dependency on gambling, and then the severity of a full-blown gambling disorder. So treatment makes a difference. It improves the quality of lives of folks. I'm working with some clients right now who are involved in court situations where they're making restitution. They are also fully engaged in gambling treatment, and their families and other folks as well, in order to help to improve their lives and to understand what their own potential is, because it is the result of trauma. It is a result of lifetime experiences that people struggle with, that oftentimes they're not aware of what that is as well. So recovery and treatment is such an important step towards health, wellness, and you know, again, people living up to their full potential, which there's good in everyone, and to be able to see this come to fruition for folks and to see the improvement in their lives is great for them to be able to see and, more importantly, experience. So most come in with a lack of understanding of their own addictions and what addiction is, and even gambling as a disorder, and the fact that it is hidden disorder. And I love the way the program is set up in Nevada for you know, that accountability, but you know, that it's hard work to go over all of those financial statements and such, but this is what people need, and the regular check-ins with that sounds terrific too. So anything a court system can do, probation, making treatment necessary as a part of the probation is certainly a diversion program as well. So treatment increases awareness, helps people to see options for making better choices, and importantly, helps them to heal and to heal from the pain of whatever is involved in, and goes along with the fact that this gambling is a diversion from so much of what's happened in their life for themselves, that they don't understand how it manifests in their lives. Many of the folks that a couple that I'm talking about now, but many of the folks I've worked with over the course of my work in the field, they don't have criminal backgrounds. but it causes behavior that goes against their own moral codes, things that they wouldn't typically do. You know, you hear regularly, well, I was taking some funds that I planned on giving back, but I needed to win in order to give back the money. And I truly believe people when they tell me that that was their full and true intention from the start. But the disorder just gets the best of them. So glad to be here today and to be able to share about the importance of treatment and it being ongoing and involving Gamblers Anonymous as well, and family work as well. And that accountability factor, I think, is crucial. So thank you very much. And I'm glad to have some time here today and to be a part of all this.
Thank you, all of you, for presenting today, but we have time left. So there is definitely time for taking more questions and answering. I did see a couple where I saw some inferences regarding the judges on how well the Gambling Diversionary Court in Nevada works with the criminal judges and seeing if the criminal judges are asking if gambling is a piece of whatever offense they may be in front of the judge for. Are they open to doing that to know whether someone goes to the diversionary court?
I'm not sure again, Mary, could you ask it again?
Yeah, so if I'm in criminal court for some criminal offense,
Yeah.
and there's a possibility that gambling may be a reason why they did this criminal offense,
Right.
are the criminal justice judges asking the questions, like kind of those behind questions of what may have caused them to do this offense and really identifying if gambling is one of those issues?
Which is, yes, I think the judge has an absolute duty and responsibility to say, because it is the judge's authority and obligation, because the word shall is in our Nevada statute. The judge shall hold an eligibility hearing. And that's where you sort things out if this is a crime from gambling. A defense attorney a good defense attorney will also bring it up to the judge. Hey, we want diversion. Yeah, or the judge can say, I think you're eligible for diversion. Let's hold an eligibility hearing. So it can come from those two sources, but the judge has to. We teach them that they're required to have that knowledge to know that they must offer them the diversion. Yeah.
And Mary, part of my role as a coordinator too is to provide the information and the education and training on Gambling Treatment Diversion Court because it's so different. I usually have a lot of conversations with the public defenders as well, because a lot of times it's the attorneys too that make that recommendation. And then the conversation happens in a courtroom that's really like, we wouldn't even know about it until somebody reaches out to me regarding how do I refer a participant or what goes into an eligibility hearing. And when Judge Moss was still in our court program, we actually all got together and created a bench card to send out to other judges and judicial officers, as well as the attorneys, because they're also involved in making that recommendation and referral for gambling treatment diversion.
Okay, no, thank you. Thank you. I do know, and I don't know if you answered this, Stephanie, already in the question and answers, but somebody had asked, like, we have a mental health court here in Maryland. We obviously have some drug court diversionary programs here in Maryland. Is it a good idea to combine them, or should we still be pushing to have that separate problem gambling diversionary court? They're kind of questioning, does it belong with it, or should it be separate, and why?
Well, I feel like that's a yes and no question. I think it's a two-parter. The reason is because, well, first of all, yes, I think that there should be a separate court. I might be biased though, because I am doing gambling treatment diversion court, but there is a huge difference. Like I was saying earlier, how gambling treatment diversion happens versus how drug treatment happens in a drug court. But with that being said, I also feel like a gambling treatment diversion court might take much time to be created as it is right now. Our statute was first put into place in 2008. Our court did not get created until 2018. That's literally a decade, a 10-year span. In that time, there have been people that were granted gambling treatment diversion outside of court because we didn't have a court yet. So, if it will take time to create such a diversion court like this, then I would say yes, try to find a way to at least provide that gambling treatment diversion in the meantime, whether it's in your mental health court or your drug court, but make sure that it's also treatment that's being done by, certified problem gambling counselors or counselors that are understanding of how, a gambling disorder happens and how it's treated, because it's very different than treating somebody who has a substance use disorder or a substance addiction. So I guess that's like a two-parter that, yes, there should be a specific court program for it, but just looking at the practicality and the logistics of creating the court program, I know it takes time, where we should at least have something in place before, or rather than not having anything at all, I guess.
Yeah, and one of the things we're seeing here at the center is that we do get more attorneys contacting us, wanting to know about what those resources are for their client who has got to go back before a judge. And we've been trying, and Jasmine, you may want to talk to this, but we've been trying to educate states' attorneys and judges just in general on who the center is and what the resources are. I don't know if Jasmine, you'd like to pick up on that.
Yes, so we do routinely reach out to the state's attorneys who are handling the exclusion program cases with a handout that lists some of the problem gambling resources available in Maryland, including the voluntary exclusion program, but also the 1-800-GAMBLER number, and just a little bit of information about what problem and disordered gambling is.
I'm looking to see what other questions we might have. We've talked about, I don't know, and I may have missed it, but the length of your program and how involved does family get in this treatment diversionary court of the individual who is, or the participant?
Our gambling treatment diversion court is 18 to 36 months. So the minimum is 18. I believe our statute says 1 year, though, 12 months for actual gambling treatment. However, our program is 18 months minimum. Family involvement, we do try to involve. I know Judge Moss was very good with bringing on a spouse, or I believe the younger participant, we asked to bring on his mother, because if you think about even your own personal finances, it's probably intertwined with so many other people if you're married or have a family. And part of what I try to do is to separate that out, especially for somebody who's married and they have to separate out their spouse's income and finances as well. I mean, it's not fair to the spouse to have to give up all of their financial records to us too when they're not the ones that it's in court. But that can be very challenging to do at first, and sometimes it takes months just to be able to figure out the differences. We've asked family members or spouses to have like a separate account, but then also we look at the whole picture too, that, when you are married, that there's, it's combined income. So we do try to bring them into court. I know Judge Moss is really good with, hey, where's your wife today? And she knows them by name, and she knows that, and that dynamic is great, because then the participants don't feel alone, but the family members also feel like, okay, the court is supporting us as a family rather than just this one individual person.
Okay. Next kind of question is, somebody had just made the comment that the court sounds like it's very labor intensive and could be costly. What are your responses to that one?
I was writing my response, true, but we were passionate about creating GTDC court. We had the knowledge. We had the daughter of Dr. Nora, who knew about gambling ever since she was a teenager. We have great specialty courts teams and personnel. We had Stephanie, she came in as our coordinator with already a problem gambling training and background. And we did it with no funding to start with, because you just got to put your brains together, Mary, and figure out how you do it. You got a judge who knows how to run court hearings, a judge who's not afraid to get things going. I was not a deer in headlights. I mean, it was unknown when we first held our first court hearing, but I knew it was going to be okay, because the first thing I said is, when you're in my courtroom, you're people. We're going to treat you like people. You're not a defendant to me. And we're here to help you, encourage you, but it's also going to take hard work on your part to make transformation, because this is not just something you go through and then go get your conviction set aside. You have to put in the work. And we're here to support you along the way. but sometimes it can be tough.
Yeah, I was lucky to view one of your court sessions, and I was just
Yeah.
tremendously
We'll get the links.
impressed with how interpersonal it was with the individual, you know, that you were so in the process that they didn't feel alienated or like, you know, they were going to get a slap on the hand. It was very engaging. And you could see the response was so positive back from the individual.
And Mary, I mean, I don't know if Josh is with the Pennsylvania Council is on listening on, but he has a Vimeo. He has a Vimeo link. We have it. We'll give you the links, give it to the attendees. 31 minutes long. The one with Alex doing his budget presentation. That's me in the courtroom. The days when I was wearing a robe and how I talked to him, and he never once stuttered during his presentation. He did so wonderful, and it gave him that kind of confidence. And so he's on his way to have a career, pay back his restitution. He's no longer the kid eating $400 a month of fast food. He's learning how to budget. We taught him all those skills, and you know, and a lot of it had to be effort on his part. So he turned it around and matured so well.
Thank you. Jasmine, somebody had asked about, we know we have the self-exclusion with the casino programs and the bingo halls, but they asked specifically about the self-exclusion for lottery, and have we found many lottery players self-excluding?
Yes, there's about, I guess, maybe 400 or so people that are on the lottery exclusion list currently. So people are interested in excluding from lottery play.
And I think it may be important, you want to note that they can sign up at the same time for many of your programs?
Yes, so on the application, you can sign up for instant bingo hall, casino, or lottery, all on the same application at once.
And another question was, is it ever going to be able to sign up online? So I'm going to leave that one to you.
We will see.
Okay. Yeah, at this point, I don't believe you can do it online, but you can contact Jasmine at the lottery, set up an appointment, do it with some of the compliance officers from the lottery right at the casinos, especially if you're in the casino and feel you need to self-exclude. So that was it. Somebody else had commented with gambling issues that maybe they could be included as a special condition of probation, the same way that substance use disorder is mandated as part of probation. Any thoughts on that?
Extreme similarities. So if you don't have GTDC in your state, you've got some really good judges that kind of get it, that incarceration is not the answer. They have that power to say, I'm going to put you on probation. Sometimes they're bound by the sentencing guidelines though. And so, you know, a felony carries 4 to 10 years. But if that judge has the power and they know they have the legal authority to say, in lieu of prison time, I'm going to send you to probation and we're going to put you in court monitoring. And we don't have to have a specialty court in place. You're going to have a probation officer assigned to you, and you're going to get treatment, community service, pay your restitution. And I think that's what the judges have been doing all along. But with GTDC courts, we're going to be much more specialized in that. We're going to have much more skills and training.
I think, thank you. Anthony, a question for you is, are you seeing more individuals seeking out some help with gambling issues or problems here in the state? And maybe, as we all know, Maryland just added sports betting, which will be coming online, and we had a panel this morning. And do we foresee that there could be more individuals that might be looking to seek out help because maybe they never gambled before, but with the convenience of some online gambling coming to the state, they may begin gambling activity?
Well, there's no doubt that there will be an increase in problem gambling with the advent of sports betting actually being executed. There are calls regularly. I know the helpline gets calls often from family members. Sometimes it's the family member who calls the helpline, and then it's the gambler who gets into my office for, you know, the beginning of treatment or to initiate all of that. You know, the fact that we have no cost treatment in the state of Maryland, I think, is a big key to having the the door being open and not having to use the excuse that, well, I'm in such debt, I could afford treatment. I may not have insurance that would cover it or those kinds of things. So I think that I know that having no cost treatment is a big plus for the state of Maryland. And, I'm hoping that more and more judges can be familiar with that. I know with the Jasmine passing along information and the center doing an awful lot of that with the attorneys as well as with the criminal justice system, that will just be another way that people will see this as an option for folks, and that will get the road of recovery started for people.
Thank you. I guess, yes, go ahead, Judge Moss.
Just final note, I've been doing this for 20 years, running the gambling court for 2 years and studying more in my free time as a retired judge. I've learned two things, affordability checks and self-exclusion. I think that right now they are our best solutions to treating problem gambling just in general. GTDC, again, we're the aftermath court. We don't want to get to that. We want to get to the prevention side. People like Brianne, who spoke earlier this morning, doing a wonderful job, and Jasmine with the lottery, keeping tabs on that and making sure that we have responsible gambling. I call it responsible gambling, responsible gaming, responsible gambling, so that people can be entertained. We're not anti-casino. We're there to make sure that entertainment stays like it is, entertainment, not destruction.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Stephanie, do you have a few final words you'd like to share overall on your experience?
Well, I just appreciate you having us on today, Mary. I think, the first step is to just provide this information and spread awareness, about what we're doing and how this is very different from a regular drug court or mental health court program. And I think this is the first step to making big changes. I know Judge Moss has been such a huge advocacy all across the nation. I'm only doing my part in Las Vegas and Nevada here, but, I'm hoping that with us doing these presentations and even just, in the 20, 30 minutes that we have saying, hey, this exists and this is what we do, now take it and do something with it, is a huge thing I think that we can be a part of. And I appreciate you allowing us to be a part of it.
I can assure you, Judge Moss and Stephanie, that I will be in touch, because I am guessing that there'll be several attendees who will be in touch with me to say, what can we do here in the state of Maryland? And I know, Judge Moss, you have some connections here in Maryland, so every little bit of help you can give us will be well received.
Absolutely, Mary. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And Jasmine, any final words on the DEP program or just anything in general?
Yes, I'd just like to thank you for letting me participate in this panel. And the Center of Excellence in the Department of Health is a key partner with the Maryland Lottery and Gaming Control Agency as far as the prevention and treatment of problem gambling in the state. So I'm greatly appreciative of being able to be included on this panel today.
And we appreciate, at the center, we appreciate all the partnerships that we have, and the one with Maryland Lottery and Gaming to ensure responsible gambling practices continues on. And we look so forward to doing that, all the way from the casinos to the upcoming sports betting to even working with retailers when it comes to the lottery side. So it is appreciated. And Anthony, anything you would like to close with?
One of the things that came to mind too throughout this, and we often hear about like the stories of how gambling got started with people from early on in their lives, or there's been this progression and development. One of the things I also have experienced seeing as with folks that come into my office, that gambling disorder starts at any point in life, depending on what happens in somebody's life. So, we're seeing this more in elder population, with loss and depression or health issues that arise, or families that become estranged, and also, to have a mind open and to, I mentioned this earlier today, but not just that it's a hidden addiction, but also helping people to understand that you may not know the impact, and there's a lot of shame and despondency that comes along with this, and people need understanding, and people need care and compassion. And it's so clear that you know, Judge Moss and Stephanie's work, and you know, what folks do to try to improve the lives of those who suffer. But this could happen anywhere along the way of life where there's things that are negative that you know, overcome, or hard to overcome for people. And it's not a sign of weakness that somebody has a gambling disorder, but there's always good reason why people develop these problems, and sometimes they need an awful lot of help from numerous places for support in order to start that recovery process. But it's always possible to have people recover.
Yeah, there was one last question that we actually, I don't think had gotten to earlier, but somebody had brought up the whole issue of street gambling, you know, and that how sometimes that can lead to some of the more criminal activity on the streets, whether it be killings, and how we lose a lot of life over street gambling. And, you know, what do we look at that when there's even more, and I think you answered this earlier, Judge Moss, but with any crime, judges should be asking some of the questions. So even if it is something that related to an individual, a young African-American male, or any male, white African-American, any cultural individual, how do we ask those questions so we know that, do people understand street gambling is gambling and that it can lead to other things?
We are talking, if it led into violence, they wouldn't be eligible for GTDC court.
They wouldn't be eligible for the court.
I think you should put on a presentation on prison reentry and treatment programs in the prisons, because I
Okay.
can tell you, there is gambling going on in every
We
prison.
do know that. Inside the prisons, it is a huge thing.
Yeah.
I used to work up as the Connecticut Council on Problem Gambling, and our peers did training within the prison, and we'd go in and do a presentation for them on their families or themselves. How many of you in this room gamble? And every single hand would go up.
Every hand. It's a tough issue to tackle. Yeah.
Well, I want to thank everybody for participating in this group today. I'm so excited that you were able to join us, both of you, one from Nevada, one from California, and our two Maryland residents. I'm very thankful. We will definitely at the center do some follow-up and try and work with our partners here in the state to look at how we can further move forth, looking at some kind of problem gambling diversionary treatment program. So again, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. You are going to now be going probably a couple of minutes early into a 15-minute break. And remember, there's the discussion board where you can network with one another and ask more questions. Also visit, again, the exhibits in the poster session. And then we will return for our last segment, session 2 of the afternoon. So I look forward to talking to you after the break. Thank you.